If you haven't found it yet, keep looking and don't settle.
Yeah, this is Houston. We're copying. Everything is go here.
We shall fight on the beaches and in the streets. We shall never surrender.
I'm in it just to rewrite history, cause I'm in the mood to label us the leaders of the new school. This ain't for the radio, can't find this on YouTube. This the type of killing that these critics ain't used to.
You're a group of happy rebels. You've said no to the rules of the game and the regulations of the day. You've said no to the conventional wisdom. You're all originals.
In this day and age, I got time for innovation, time to be creative, time to make the waste of my time on critics.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to 90 Proof Wisdom Podcast this morning. We're thrilled to have Kevin Ward, the Layton City Fire Chief, and so many other titles. I can't keep track of them here, Kevin. But we're happy to have him here. We're going to cover some awesome topics. Kevin, under his watch, has seen a ton of changes, implemented a ton of different trainings, and had to fight some hard fights. And we wanted to just touch some bases. Layton City is a huge department here in Davis County, and he's on the board of Weber Fire Districts, and you have all sorts of titles. Let's hear them.
Well, I actually just moved into being president of the Utah State Fire Chiefs Association. That'll be a 2-year term, followed by 2 more years as the Western Fire Chiefs Association representative for Utah. And as you mentioned, chairman of the board of the Weber Fire District. I am running for re-election.
So we know where to put our vote in, right? Chief Kevin Ward.
That's right. Thank you. I appreciate that. So I've been on the board now. This will be my going into my 4th term there now, and I've been the chairman now for at least the last 6 years. I kind of moved in a few years ago, so I do that, and also do adjunct faculty for Utah Fire Rescue Academy at Utah Valley University.
Ton of articles in Straight Tip that I read.
And Secretary Treasurer for the Joint Council of Fire Service Organizations, which is our legislative voice of the United Fire Service within the state of Utah. So it's
how much time do you have in a day, for heaven's sakes?
Seems like I'm running out, and I need a little bit more. If you can give me a few more hours a day, that'd be great.
So we were just talking about this before we turned on. 1977, you started here in Weber County.
Well, actually, in 1977 is when I started. I actually was a paramedic in LA County for a very short amount of time. I was actually the youngest certified paramedic in the history of LA County, from what I understand. I was actually, I'd been an EMT up in the Bay Area. I'd got my EMT while I was in high school, and went to Sierra Academy of Aeronautics to be a pilot. That was kind of where the direction I was going, and was working on my private and my commercial. Started working as an EMT for Bay City's ambulance in Oakland, which was a big eye-opener for an 18-year-old kid from Southern California. And so I did that for a few months, and went to paramedic school in Daniel Freeman, the first accredited paramedic school in the country, by the way, 001. And once I got out of there, I started working in the city of Laverne for a private ambulance company, realizing I really wanted to get in the fire service. And back then in Southern California, it's pretty difficult to get on. And so I loved to ski, and I was looking at different options of going to Utah or Colorado. They had this one. They had the Jarvis-Gunn Amendment. I don't know if you remember hearing about that. The Proposition 13 repeal of property taxes. It decimated fire services around the state of California. So there was nobody hiring. Plus, I wasn't old enough. You had to be 21. Most departments. I think LA County was the only one you could be 18. So I did come up in October of 77 for the Weber County Fire Department at the time. Worked there for a little over almost 2.5 years. It was a culture shock for a kid from Southern California coming up to Weber County back in 77 to January of 1980. It was different. Really felt like I needed to figure out something different.
Right.
And, so went down to Arizona, started with the Chandler Fire Department in 1980, and worked my way up the ranks. Retired as battalion chief in 2000, first part of 2004. And, January 2004, that's when I came up to Layton. So I've been a captain. I was a captain in Chandler for a little over 18 years, about 9 years as a truck company captain, 9 years as an engine company captain, paramedic the whole time. So,
wow.
Yeah. So it's been 40. It'll be 44 years next month. So I'm just getting started.
And your shirt's ripping.
I got a lot to learn.
That'll be 10. That'll be what, 9 stars?
Yeah, eventually. Yeah.
You got one more month. That's 9 stars, right?
Yeah.
5 per.
Well, yeah. I'll be next the following
Next year.
year. But
okay.
anyway, yeah, I got a lot left in me to give, brother. I
Boy,
got a
you
lot to
must,
give.
and you must have a lot of energy.
Well, I do.
Yeah, you can tell. So I wanted to go into, you've had some awesome stuff you've had to deal with. Like in some of the last conversations we'd had over here with Rich King, some of the struggles that we have right now. And again, Dan Lillianquist bill, we brought up a little bit about that in Tier 2 and how bad and how detrimental it's been to just our, number one, recruitment, how hard it is to hire good qualified individuals, firefighters, men, women alike. You don't even care, but it's hard to find really good, strong people because, we've lost a little bit of the allure of becoming public service and fire, right? Then on top of that, the attrition has gone through the roof. The ability to maintain or retain solid quality individuals, and whether they're leaving for departments or changing careers altogether, I don't think people understand how important our retirement was as a recruitment tool and an attrition, to minimize attrition in the element, and it can get passed off lightly, and I don't think our public and our citizens understand what that Tier 2 looked like in comparison to what it was pre-2012 or 2011, and then what it did. Like our judges got 110% at that on the same bill of their wage when they retire, and here we sit at 37% after 25, and I know that's been righted a little bit up to 50%.
It's up to 50 at 25 now.
At 25.
So we did get a partial fix, at least a little bit.
A little bit. So, but that took 9 years or 8 years, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it took several years
to get that fixed. And when I was on the IAFF union presidency here in Roy, that was a huge problem with the PFFU. And actually, Colin was in the IAFF the same time, so we attended some of the conferences together. And that seemed to be a hot button. And as firefighters that were working underneath the union, and they'd have their grievances that they'd bring up, it feels like that it's ignored at the higher level, right? And I'm not saying that as an attack, but it feels like the state doesn't care, right? And I know that it's important for fire chiefs. You guys are swinging as hard as you could, and I'd like people to understand where and how you guys are taking it and what we feel like we're going to be able to get to at some point with the help of the citizens as they vote their people in and they choose people that are voting for the right bills, and how important it is for our already underpaid career that we choose. It's a service-based career that I think all of us do with pride, and we do it because we love our job, we love our family in the fire world, and we love our citizens, and we love what we do, period. It's obviously not the paycheck in most cases.
True.
There is some cities that are out there that pay really well, and that's good, and that's where that should be. But for a 240-hour-a-month career, it's kind of underserved. So we should have either a pay that's decent or a retirement that's appealing, right? When I got into it with Paul, another kid here that he is in the fire world, he goes, I don't know why he does state work. And he's like, look, I don't know why you guys feel like you should be retired in 20. I said, well, an average employee works 160 hours a month. A fireman works 240 hours a month average, right? So you take that annualized, and if we looked at a 30-year bucket at 40 hours a week, that equals so many hours, call it 50,000. And if we're able to do that same hours in 20 years, should it matter? Shouldn't it be hours in, hours out? Like if I can submit and turn in the same amount of hours that you do in 30 years at 40 hours a week, but I choose to do it in 60 hours a week, shouldn't I have the right to have the same pool of money out? And of course, there was no answer to that.
Right.
He's like, well, then that's only 20 years worth of work. I'm like, I know, but I do it at 50% more work a week.
Yeah. Yeah, you're working, our firefighters work 2,920 hours, and a 40-hour worker is 2080.
Yeah.
So
or
you're
1960,
talking
2080. Right?
Almost 800 and some odd more hours
annualized.
Per year.
Yeah. It's a big deal. So shouldn't we have a contribution total that we then pool an equal amount of value, right?
Yep.
So I think, we sit there and bless most firemen's heart. They really don't have a bat to swing. And I don't mean that in a mean, condescending way. I mean, we are really relying on our paycheck. We are really relying on our benefits, and we're really relying on our retirement. So to have a voice to step up and say, hey, Chief Ward, like this is not fair. We need to do this. And depending on the chief, and I know you're not the guy, that's why I kind of felt like I could bring you on here and have this conversation.
Yeah.
But some people, like especially the wet behind the young career firefighter that's just starting, that's getting in there and getting buried, and we get him trained, and all of a sudden we're like, this guy's a rock star, and then they go be a siding guy.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a problem. But what is it like when they feel nervous to come and approach because they don't want you to have power over you have obviously power over their wage and their retirement. So it's scary to come up to someone like you and say, hey man, this retirement's tough. My pay is tough. What is it that you guys are doing to try to help get this righted? It's a hard question to ask your chief.
Well,
right?
it is, and we certainly when we knew this was going to happen, and I know when Lillenquist ran the bill, he said, "Well, we'll just expect cities and districts to just up their pay, and we'll just give them more money, just pay your people more money." Well, you can't just pay people more money, and it's the Utah State Fire Chiefs Association. We have a legislative committee that really focuses on that in cooperation with the Joint Council of Fire Service Organizations, and that encompasses all the different organizations, whether it be the Utah Firefighters Association, Professional Firefighters Utah, the State Fire Marshals Association, the state chiefs. We're all together on this, and it's on our. It's one of the things we talk about every year is trying to figure out how we can convince the folks that the money's there to fix it. Our economy's doing quite well. The state's got a big war chest of money, and so we're trying to work on it. We do have a big friend, and shout out to Matt Gwynn out there.
I love Matt. I call him Mayor.
Yeah.
Hey, Mayor, if you're listening, just kidding.
Matt,
Although he's congressman, right?
Yeah, he's.
I had to give him a hard
representative out
time.
of Far West. Yeah, Matt served as my vice chair on the fire district board.
Yes,
he's a good friend. And
when I worked
at
at Roy, he was the Roy PD officer,
Right.
and it was funny the way he talked to citizens. He was really friendly, but as I'd pull up in a rescue, and he'd be in there talking, and it looked like he was campaigning, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, Mayor, will you just go secure the scene, please? Quit trying to, and he wasn't in office yet.
Right.
I'm like, quit trying to run for office, and the irony is he ended up running for office anyway. But it was just funny, so that's why I gave him the nickname Mayor, and I just do it over the loudspeaker. I'm like, come on, Mayor. This is so.
Well,
I love Matt.
Yeah, Matt's a great man, and he's certainly an ally for public safety, being the chief at Roy, and he's, now the Utah State Legislative Representative for Far West, and I know going into this, one of the things that he always focused on was retirement, and that's what he's been working on more than anything in going into that position. Is he's got a passion to do that. So we're working with him. He's first term, so he doesn't wield a lot of power down there, but he keeps chomping at it. That guy's a pit bull on it.
If someone can pull it off, Matt, you can do it. Don't
That's
go.
right.
Just keep swinging, brother.
Yep.
We need it.
Yep.
We need it, and our firefighters need it, and our policemen need it, and our EMS teams need it.
Right.
Our fire chiefs need it. Believe it or not, fire guys, our fire chiefs need this help. They're not out there wanting to hire new people every 2 weeks. They don't want to lower their grade of personnel. They want the ability to hire top line people. So I think sometimes we get this crossed view a little bit, like as a firefighter sitting in a day chair some days or sitting on a fire ground, we feel like our fire chiefs are doing this in spite of what our desires are, right? And that's not the case. The case is we're limited to our power in leadership on what we can do, and we need help from, especially in your role, different than private sector, that you need a bunch of people above, right. to help you help them. And it's not that we're ignorant to what their needs are. You would love to have the ability to pay the right amount of money for each one of your people and to give them the right retirement for what they felt like they should be getting or what we used to receive. I don't think anything would make you happier.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't think.
Yeah, we want to be able to pay a good, fair wage, and then we want to be able to provide a good, stable retirement. I will say the change to 50% made things a lot better, not as good as it could be. But
it helped a lot.
It helped a lot, and we see pension reform all over the country, especially other places where the pension system is, kind of upside down. I mean, fortunately in Utah, the way that it was structured, with the restricted account and everything coming in from the percentage off the fire insurance premiums and all that helps to fund that. And our fire retirement is 100% funded. And you look at some other states back east, and it's 40% funded, 35% funded. I mean, some of them are near insolvency, what they're.
And ours are 100% covered.
And our firefighter pension is covered 100%. So law enforcement is a little bit different. So they're really taking a hit on this. That's why their retirement costs are so much higher. And of course, everything going on with PD, recruitment and retention is, I think right now, Chief Swanson told me he's down at least a dozen to 15 officers right now, and they are
just parked police cars.
And it's tough. And so they obviously have a lot higher turnover for a lot of reasons right now. But when you start taking away the retirement incentive and what the pay is and things like that, now you're starting to see some of these cities are upping their police pay significantly. I mean, some of these departments gave their officers a 13% across the board pay increase, and so their pay is coming in. But now,
which 13%, Roy pays $42,000 a year for a police officer. So
Yeah.
13% is like 45 grand. It's like that's a decent wage.
Yeah, it's-
but when your average median household cost here in Utah is 400,000 for a multifamily and
Right.
465 for single family, 40,000 is a hard needle to move to
Yep.
be able to afford a house.
So a lot of them, I know several in the Salt Lake Valley are starting close to 50,000 on some of those. It's still,
Hard to
it's
afford.
entry level. It is. It's very tough, and so they struggle probably worse than I know. They struggle worse with us with recruitment and retention, especially.
Well, everybody loves firefighters.
Well, they do.
Not like police. Sorry, guys. Just kidding.
We
get
love
waved
them
at
and we need them.
with all 5 fingers. That's how they wave at us most of the time.
Yeah.
Just giving Matt a hard time, really, and his guys. But ultimately, I think, there's some major things that we could do to really help our guys. And, I have a unique opportunity to still be able to serve in the fire service. And there's a lot of drama, and I don't want to make it sound small, and I just mean like conversations that are hard hurdles for them. And you get a different perspective in the sense that you're like, man, I miss those kind of those little hard times. Like they're really trying to just rub 2 nickels together, and they've worked 240 hours that month, and just to listen in as an out, I say outside, but someone that I'm not stressing at that level right now in those smaller hurdles that they have to cross, and to see that they're already giving 33% more of their time a month, and they try to find other jobs like roofing or tile or whatever, carpet, that seems to be big, and flooring, to just try to pay the bills, to just pay the house payment, to just pay the food after giving 240 hours. You sit there and you're like, man, it's just kind of heartbreaking to hear the stress. And I think sometimes for citizens, they think all the fire guys are sitting in the firehouse, or the paramedics are sitting in the firehouse waiting for the next thing. But the unfortunate part about our job, especially with HIPAA, is we can't wave a flag on all the great heroic lives we saved last night.
Right.
It's pretty much mute, and we can't talk about it, right? So the public doesn't know anything about that kind of thing until it's their house.
Yep.
And then they think we're great after we go to their house. But they don't know that we served all night, and they may see that their trucks are parked in the driveway. That doesn't necessarily mean we're there, right? You can't see in the bays most of the time to see our trucks are gone.
Yeah.
So it's not that we're laying down in the day room all day. You guys do a great job of keeping us training from 9 to 5, 8 to 5, right? We stay busy whether all day long, and then at night we end up running calls a lot of nights, and then on the weekends as well. So it may seem like to an outsider, oh, that's a great job. You guys barbecue. You have a great camaraderie. It's like family, your brotherhood. You watch sports games. Well, first off, we eat cold dinners. You don't finish a sports game.
True.
You know what I mean? And so, all those things are true, but thanks to DVRs, we can finish one. And thanks to a smoker, you can turn down the temperature a little bit. But I think sometimes it's taken for granted. And I think they need advocates that can speak loud and not be, you guys are stuck in a tough spot being admin, and the firefighters are stuck in a tough spot because they don't want to be the bad guy inside this. So how do you get that communication to line out?
Well, that's a big part of it is communicating what we're working on and what we're doing. I mean, that's one of the, of course, it's the biggest thing is communication and everything. Letting them know, hey, we're trying to do what we can to fight for you, and I hope my guys know that. Man, I love them, guys generically there, but guys and gals, I love them.
Sure.
Just man, they're awesome. I've got the most awesome folks working for me I could possibly imagine, and I'm trying to get their back. And so we'll keep fighting. We're not done yet. We're going to keep fighting for it. And
Good.
so that's our I think they know that. I hope they know that.
I hope they do too, because it goes underappreciated. And it's not that everybody doesn't say they love fire guys. They do, but sometimes it's not reflected.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to feel, and I feel for our guys. And as we were listening to them on Friday and Saturday that I worked, I'm like, man, what else can we do to help them? And that's where I'd already invited you. We'd already scheduled this.
Sure.
And I thought it would be a great opportunity. And I just wanted you to be able to have a little voice, non-judgment. And then, of course, me, I don't know how this will repercuss, but at the end of the day, I wanted to have the opportunity to ask you questions on behalf of other people.
Sure.
Just say, hey, man, like, how hard are you swinging? Is this important? Do you lose sleep? Because we sure know they do. And what are the goal lines that we could hope for? Like, what does that look like? And you've done a good job of explaining that on how that gets tackled. So,
yeah, we're going to keep fighting. We want to move it. Our goal, the end goal that we'll keep fighting for, is to basically move everybody from tier 2 to tier 1 back into a tier 1 retirement. That's our goal. How long we get there, I don't know. We're going to keep fighting for it.
That's your goalpost.
Yeah, that's the goalpost. That's we're getting in the end zone when we got that. Then we're it's going to make things, a lot better. And, that's where we're working on.
How did that transition? I'd left full time from that point, from tier 2 to tier the first step where it was like 37.5%. If I'm not mistaken.
37.5%.
And then it went back to 50. What happened to that gap? The people that were hired in the middle, was it just all righted?
Yeah, I think everything got righted on that.
Back
yeah,
to
we
where
had
it initially
a
started.
few in that, and I think everything got
Corrected.
made whole on all that. So
Okay, good. Well, I wanted another thing. So Layton City, when I was sitting in fire training classes, you guys, before you were hired as the fire chief, I know that Chief Shawley from Riverdale, he was actively working there, right? But we had a line of duty death, the most horrific thing we could have in a fire department occur with Kendall O'Brien, right?
Yep, absolutely.
And a really sad story, and a smaller house, and just showing how fast a fire ground can turn from something that may seem benign and mundane to something that takes the life of one of our brothers. You guys have done a great job in UFRA, in your city alone, as well as Jared Shawley taking a torch to help
Absolutely.
train these.
Yep.
I kind of wanted to talk to you. This is kind of on the trauma to triumph category.
Mm-hmm.
How do we take something, I mean, that is absolutely the single most feared thing that occurs on a fire ground or a police ground for a fire or police chief, right?
Absolutely.
So this is what you fear every day. And I can tell you, who was the captain? Val King, right?
Val King, uh-huh.
So I was sitting there working with him at Station 52 one night, and we were up till like 2:30 in the morning at Layton. And he was in there. We were just sitting on the back, leaning on the fire truck, and we went into the conversation a little bit. And he talked to me about your conversation about when he wanted to leave Layton. He just didn't want to do it anymore. And he said, no, absolutely. You're according to his response to you.
Yeah.
What you said, I'm not going to let you leave, brother.
Yeah.
Not now.
Yep.
Like after this, you're the most important guy
Absolutely.
in the fire service to me. This will never happen on your watch again. And so ever since that conversation sitting in that bay, I've implemented that type of action in our business in a different realm. Obviously, hopefully I don't have a job death, obviously.
Yeah.
But, when I look at people that make mistakes in our business or at work, it's not, I think we're quick to execute, prosecute, terminate, whatever that is, because it's an easy way out. Especially when you look at something like that, it seems like you'd have a target in an element, like, I'm going to get rid of that son of a gun. Look what he did, or what could have been the problem, right? So how did you take those unique perspectives and spin them on their head to where saying, look, you've made this mistake for me before. There is no way you're going to make that mistake for me again. And there is no way, even more, would I ever let you leave, because you will not let that happen. You are my key to making sure I have this I don't have this happen again. So in my world, I've taken it and said, look, this guy's made this mistake before. He'll never do that again, right, even though it's nothing to do with life loss. But I used that lesson that Val King taught me and tried to implement it in my decision-making on whether I hire or retain someone, or not hire, but retain or let somebody go. It's been an important lesson to me. So I kind of wanted to just expound on how that felt walking into a department roughly 4 years post-incident. Mm-hmm. If you don't mind covering a little bit about the fire and maybe do a little on what had occurred that day that you guys are well exercised in learning
Sure.
and teaching the lessons. And then as well as kind of saying how you're using this as a great tool to create a triumph thing for Kendall and then future firefighters down the line.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, I did come just shy of 4 years. I came up in January of 2004, March 31st of 2000 at about 10 p.m. was when Kendall was killed. I knew I was coming into that. I knew I was coming to the department I was a little bit familiar with. It was kind of ironic. I remember when Kendall was killed, I was actually at FDIC West when they used to do up in Sacramento. And this is kind of before everybody had a lot of computer access or their phone to read things and all that. They had a little kiosk where you had different computers you could go on and read the news. And so I happened to go up to read the news there, and I saw, and I was talking with somebody about line of duty death, and actually Greg Chamberlain was there.
Okay.
And he was actually reading the news article. And I didn't really know Greg at the time. I mean, I kind of knew him from when I worked at Weber prior, but I really didn't know him that well. I can't remember where he was in his career at that time, but he was reading that, and so we kind of interacted, and I told him I'd worked at Weber and all that. So he was reading it, and we were just like, man, this is terrible. This is the worst thing that could happen. I was like, yeah. Well, subsequently the NIOSH report comes out. Usually takes 7, 8, 9 months when the NIOSH report comes out. And one of the things we did in Chandler was every month, as part of our training regime, we had different companies and shifts. We'd go over a line of duty death. Those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. So we take these NIOSH reports and we go through and dissect them and apply them to our department and learn from them. That's what we would do. And I remember specifically that was one of the line of duty deaths that I reviewed for my shift and going through that. So I was familiar with it, at least from the NIOSH report. So it was interesting coming up to say, man, this is now my department. I've got guys that went through this. In fact, everybody that had been on the department at the time of the fire was still on the department. Nobody, at least as far as I know, nobody had left the department. So they were all there. They were all still there. The main players were all still there, and the department, I could tell, was still not healed from it. There really wasn't. I mean, you get the NIOSH report, and then there's all the the firehouse conversations around the table talking about it, and still a lot of this going on. Finger pointing back and forth, and talking behind people's backs about it and everything. And so once I got there, I wanted to listen, like you should,
for a while,
listen to what's going on, and kind of get to know the folks and build that relationship and trust, which is essential for the team. Is you got to build trust first of all. So as we started to build that element of trust, and I talked with Jared was a captain at the time, and we talked about the incident, and I don't remember the exact specifics of our conversation, but I was just like, what, Jared, Kendall died. We screwed up, and I distinctly remembered, the year after Kendall died, when Brett Tarver died down in Phoenix.
Yeah, that's a big training ground
and
one too.
And I saw what Brunacini did. I'm a big Brunacini fan. I knew him personally. I considered him to be a mentor, kind of from afar. I didn't have a super close relationship, but I knew him and would, had an opportunity to listen to him quite a bit in some smaller environments and get to know him a little bit. Anyways, I saw what Bruno did down there, because I was in that, as Chief Sullivan was as well. We talk about this when we're teaching, specifically being at the funeral of Brett Tarver and him looking at all of his chiefs in the front row, people say, did we screw up? Hell yeah, we killed a firefighter, and we are not going to let that happen again. And I am tasking each and every one of you, pointing at his main staff of officers, his chief officer in the front. So we will fix this. We will find out what went wrong, and we will fix this. It's kind of like extreme ownership, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly
Jocko
right.
Willnick. It's we take ownership. Hey, we screwed up. Somebody died. We lost one of our own. We cannot let this happen again. And I distinctly remember when, coming up that day and pulling into the station and seeing that monument that we have out there, that monument
51.
for Kendall at Station 51. And I looked at that and I said, I don't want any more of these. And I've told the guys, I don't want to have to do any more monuments around here. We're going to figure out what happened. We're going to fix it. And so my conversation with Captain Shelley at that time, Jared, was we're going to dissect this, and we're going to open up some wounds. We're going to go through. We're going to talk about it. It's not that we're trying to pin blame on anybody, but we want to talk about what we did wrong and how we could have prevented this, and what can we do in the future to prevent it. So I kind of just sort of let Jared go on his own to start pulling it all together. We were very fortunate that we had all the audio transmissions, and we had somebody from across the street recorded the entire event from the first arriving engines until Kendall's pulled out through the window above the garage, in which Jared was one of the ones that was pulling that.
Well, in 2000, that's rare. Now it's on every fire that people are recording.
Yeah, that was.
You can't make a mistake.
Well, you could tell it's an old, shaky
VHS.
video. The guy's probably got the big old video camera on his side filming it. It wasn't a phone. It was just like a big old video camera. So we had that unique video that was a perfect position, alpha side of the structure. Yeah. Watching everything, and we could see so many things from that we had that we talk about. Part of in our habits of highly effective incident commanders, we talk about working from a sterile cockpit environment, the use of a tactical worksheet. We talk about things like that, having situational awareness, and seeing our incident commander in the front yard with his back to the fire, our battalion chief at the time, not reading smoke, not watching what's going on, not getting distracted, not hearing radio traffic with all the engines revving, the pumps revving, the fans going. You can't hear what's going on. And so that's when one of the first things I did coming there was we're not going to have our incident commanders, because I literally my first day, I think we had a kitchen fire, and I had no idea where I'm going, of course. So I jumped in with the assistant chief, and and there's the incident commander in the front yard walking around, and I'm like, what's he doing? He's commanding from the front yard. I said, no, we aren't doing that anymore. I told the battalion chief, you will command from that vehicle, and he kind of chuckled, and I said, well, you're going to command from that inside of that vehicle, and so I made it abundantly clear that as an incident commander, my expectation, you're going to be in a sterile cockpit environment. It works for the aviation industry for a reason. Works in the fire service. And I said, you will sit in there. And in fact, if you have trouble, I will get that officer's handcuffs and I will handcuff you to the steering wheel.
Right.
And if somehow you get out before the fire is under control, I'll fire you.
Yeah.
And then they kind of chuckled. I said, I don't know why you're laughing. I'm dead serious. And I kind of made it pretty clear, my expectations on that. And then once they start doing it, they realize
how important it is. That's
a pretty good idea. So now, we that was one thing that was big, coming from the mecca of incident command with Brunasini. That was one thing that was just, there was no discussion. You commanded from the sterile cockpit environment, so you could hear radio traffic with a support officer, somebody helping you keep track of things, listen for radio traffic, somebody that can challenge the plan, verify verify the strategy and the plan. Those are all important things that we've brought up here with our command training. So I was working on kind of the command side of it. That was kind of my role as an coming in as an incident, teaching incident command, and really, because I realized one thing, I hope nobody takes this the wrong way, but incident command up here kind of sucked. I mean, it really did. And so
this is 20 years ago or 17 years ago when you got here.
17 and a half years ago, it really really wasn't very good. So that was kind of my mission, to work with you to develop the command training center, and started that, from the day one down there with just the idea of, hey, let's have a statewide command curriculum. We'll base it on Brunasini's Fireground Command book. We'll teach those functions of command, and spread it statewide, so we have consistency statewide.
And
so that's what we've tried to do.
Well, you're doing incident command training a lot. Like, we get these text messages quite often, right here at the training center.
We do quite a bit. And so from a command standpoint, that was kind of my focus, is I wanted to make our incident commanders better, and teach them the right habits, so to speak. So we did that, and then so Jared kind of took the fire itself, the tactical side of it. I had Scott my assistant chief, run me up to the house. Of course, it looks nothing like it did back then, but I just wanted to get a feel for the size of the home and the area.
So explain
to look at it,
like, so people can visually
it's your
understand
typical
this house.
Split level, bedrooms over the garage, kind of an entry level walk down, walk up the stairs. At least at the time of the fire, that's what it looked like.
How big?
It was. I don't know if it exactly, it's under 2,000 square feet.
So you're sub 2,000 square feet tri-entry, so split level entry.
Just your typical split level entry.
One that all of us have, our starter
north
home.
of Antelope. Yeah, kind of a.
And still can get lost, and you can still die.
That was obvious. We made some errors on ventilation errors. It was basically a garage fire that spread through the man door into the structure, and when the fan got put in, it at the front door without at the improper time and without improper air, flow path. And when we talk about flow path, that all that happened was that fire raged up the stairs, and that's when you talk with Captain King. Well, they actually called them lieutenants at the time, but Val's up there, fire's blowing up at him, and it's so hot. He said felt like his blood was boiling. He knew he had to go, and started pulling him out, and they started backing out, and he had firefighter Michael Redmond on his first structure fire, and had to, kind of get Micah down the stairs, kind of push him down there, because it was like descending into the gates of hell.
Sure.
And Kendall didn't follow. Kendall, I think, had the idea that maybe he was going to try and go out a window or notify somebody. Kendall was an experienced firefighter. He worked in Ogden full time. Had a lot of fire. He talked about, in fact, Scott Adams told me that right before Kendall died, he talked about how he had to work in fire every day on his last 3 shifts, and so I think he had a different plan. We don't know what went through his mind, but I think he realized he was going to try and find another way out, and got separated and was found in an upstairs bedroom.
No mask, right? He's removed his SCBA.
I think his SCBA had been removed and everything, and so.
And then he had I read the NIOSH yesterday, and then his hands were in his hand, trying to protect his face and filter air.
Out of air and
empty tank.
Yeah, exactly. So, I it didn't have a radio on. Pass alarm had not been activated. It was back before we had integrated pass alarms and things like that. So, made things difficult. There were certainly some things that could have.
They saw his flashlight.
Yep.
That's how they located.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Yep. So we took that out, and Jared put together a terrific presentation. I was trying to remember exactly what year. I mean, I came out in 2004, so it took a year or two to really get this thing honed in, and so Jared continued to provide that presentation, pretty emotionally tolling on him for over till the 20th anniversary, and then he's essentially retired the presentation. But just because we retired the presentation doesn't mean we don't continue to learn from it.
So that went on till last year, roughly.
Yep. It's 20.
Yeah, I've seen it a few times.
Yeah, the 20th year. It was March 31st of 2000. So he finished it up by did a presentation for Layton City. We actually invited everybody citywide. We invited all the departments to come and learn from it, and allowed Jared to share this. And in some way, it was almost like closure for him. I think he finally realized, I've been doing this for 20 years. It's taken a toll on me, and I had him go down to Arizona and do some down there. He presented it at Firehouse World in California. Most of the departments in Utah have probably seen that presentation.
Right?
Winter Fire School several times. He's presented this, and I don't remember the exact amount, but it was literally hundreds of presentations over the years, and it's one of those events that we look at and say we will continue to learn from this. We dedicate one of our training programs we do is in March. We have May Day March, and everything we do in our training for the entire month of March is focused on May Day operations. I usually do a class on May Days. I take Don Abbott's 1,000 May Days, and do things on his review of these 1,000 of different May Days, and talk about, RIT and where people are found, how quick May Days are being called, and really kind of go into a lot of the things that encompass, May Days mostly from a command standpoint, commanding the May Day, and talk about our erupt acronym that we teach and use. And so I usually do one of those classes, but then we go out and we do a lot of drills. I mean, we do a lot of air management drills. We do a lot of saving our own.
In your awesome
skills.
New training tower.
In our awesome training tower, we do them there. And this last year, we actually had a theater that was being demolished for condos or townhouses. Imagine that.
Yeah, weird.
Right. Yeah, weird.
Well, that's all we can afford.
More townhouses. Yeah, more townhouses in Layton. And so that's right there by the mall. That was all going to be torn down. So we had a very unique opportunity to do a lot of mutual aid drills. Man, we had so many smoke machines going you couldn't see your hand in front of your face, and so
that's awesome.
We did a lot of great Mayday drills and kind of exercised our new communications. We made a helmet transition this year.
Oh, nice.
It was nothing that I brought on. I have my guys that, I always tell my guys that my job's to get your job's to figure out what we need and tell me, and my job's to get it for you.
Yep.
And so my PPE committee and my leader of that, and Battalion Chief Nance and Captain John went through this evaluation. We were looking at some helmet transitions, so we went to the new MSA helmets that kind of look like the motorcycle helmet, for lack of a better term. They're I think they're pretty cool looking, look like jet fighter pilots, and I get a lot of
grief.
Not from my guys. It's funny, I don't get it from my guys. I get it from other departments.
Sure.
And it's funny, my guys, that even the ones that were like, really, seriously, the fire service. Do you think firefighters hate has changed the way things are?
And they don't like things to stay the same, but they hate change.
Yeah, that's right. Hundreds of years of tradition unimpeded by change and progress. And so we just realized communications were horrible in the fireground. We've known that for years. I mean, I remember as a battalion chief listening to my guys talk, and it's like that. And we're like I'm looking at my support officer. What did he say? I have no idea. And so now these have integrated communication in there. They got a nice, good microphone that comes off of here, and you're able to hear really well. And radio transmissions are clear. So anyway, we had a chance to really exercise these on our.
So what do you think?
our
I'm going to
fire.
stop really
So-
quick when you bring up communications. There's still departments in our county or other counties, local, small volunteer, that are running no communications into the fire ground. Like Morgan County, 0. We don't go in with an earpiece or nothing. Now your captain has a radio.
Yeah. Well,
That scares me to death for me.
It is. I mean, communication on the fire ground is essential.
We got horns, but
Right.
you've been in a fire.
Yeah.
You can't always hear horns. You got water, you got fire, you've got stress.
Yep.
What do you hear? I mean, yeah, okay, there's some loud horns, but guess what? They like, I honked. You're like, didn't hear anything. I was on that Wilkinson asphalt fire. That Wilkinson,
Oh, yeah.
that was crazy. I was the first driving engine with Chief Rich, and it was just Chief Rich and I in the truck. We pull up. I was like, hey, I'll get the water. You grab a nozzle, you go in. And I walked in, and it was, to give you an idea, like a 20-foot building, 14-foot door, so you could have about 6 foot of build-up smoke before it was barreling outside the garage bay. Well, there was a little smoke, but it hadn't built up that much. And I walked into the bay room, and they had those big 6-foot radius, half-inch thick glass halogen lights, those big ones.
Right.
So I looked up there, and I saw this little candlestick. I'm like, oh, there's the fire. That ain't much. And then I hit it with a little, pencil stream, and I'm like, wait a second, that's pretty big. So I kind of fogged it out to see what it was. I'm like, oh, this whole thing's up, right?
Yeah.
Everything above me. And I'd gone, 30% into the bay, right? So right when I did that, I took the nozzle and I went above my head to see how much under the fire I was. Well, guess what that does?
Oh yeah.
Disturbed the light. So guess what
Absolutely, yeah.
comes down?
Oh.
That 6-foot halogen came right down, and
Oh,
it cut my
geez.
fire line right off. I had my nozzle. So then after that, the garage bay came down. So that was the closest I've ever come to really being killed on a fire ground. It was literally at the toes of my feet. And
Wow.
I didn't get hurt, not at all. But that could have been really close. That being said, I'm fine. But I walked outside with just the tail of this nozzle, and Waller looks at me. He's like, "Hey, your hose is cut." I'm like, well, no shit. Like, there's no water. This hose is doing this, right? And he's like, oh, I'm going in. I'm like, dude, don't go in there.
Yeah.
That thing, there's fire all through the top. And they had an asphalt distributor, which spreads asphalt on the streets.
Right.
That was fully engulfed. All these different things were fully going. And I'm like, we walked up, and we had mutual aid from South Ogden come up, and all of us were hiding kind of behind the engine at the time. Acetylene tanks and oxygen tanks were blowing up, and they were just shooting everywhere,
Wow.
So we're all hiding like a bunch of, firefighters that are afraid of getting hit with a tank, right? That's bottom line.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we don't like blebbies.
I'll never forget. Here comes Bronson in South Ogden's platform, or their platform. Shows up, and he gets out like a heroic firefighter should, right? He's got his captain's hat on. He gets out. He looks around the bay, and all of a sudden, boom! A tank goes out. You see Bronson slide. He's like, "Well, why didn't you tell?" He was walking right towards the open, right? He goes, "Why didn't you tell me things were exploding in there?" I'm like, "Didn't you see us like hiding in the corner, like for a second while things were blowing up?" He's like, "Well," then he started talking about that was one of those incidences, how quickly you can get caught off guard. You know what I
Absolutely.
mean? And the communication component, like Chief Rich had a radio, but I wasn't a captain, so I don't have a radio.
Yeah.
So I'm inside a bay, and that, how it is when tanks are going on.
Oh, absolutely.
And when asphalt
Yeah.
distributors are burning, and then you've got the stuff all above your head going. After that incident, and I was used to Roy. Roy did a really good job for the equipment that we had then. We had earpieces and we had mics, and even though you're exactly right, you couldn't hear the first word really or understand the words being said, but you could hear communications. You could hear Mayday tone. You could at least make that out. Right. If you needed to pull out, you could at least get out.
Right.
But when you go in blind, to me, it's super scary. And I also believe it's completely wrong of counties or cities to expect firefighters to go in deaf, right? To not take the proper precautions for those guys. And I'm not saying right, wrong, or indifferent. I just think as a taxing agency or as a citizenry, we should give them the right tools, just like you've done for Layton City. The first time I saw those masks was in Hong Kong, China. I'd gone to Hong Kong, and I saw this little teeny fire truck, and then I watched these Chinese guys get out with those helmets, and I thought they were pretty weird looking. They looked like fighter jet pilot helmets, right?
Yeah.
So that was the first time I saw that. But great, if they improve communications and they improve protection, then I don't care what it looks like. You're going home.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. Like, whatever it takes to help us improve your safety, regardless if you want to be the traditional firefighter helmet. I agree. I love the traditional firefighter helmet.
looks
I mean,
looks
how
great.
much wrong is that? Those are beautiful.
Yeah,
But
it was designed to keep water from going down the back of your neck. Well,
yeah, it's wonderful.
Well, now with the new turnout gear, that's not a problem
it's not relevant
anymore.
right? So it's just like, what did we do? Well, we used to ride a horse and buggy to work.
Yeah.
Right. My grandma used to cut both ends of the ham, as they say.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
exactly.
different things. You get a bigger pan, right?
Oh,
we changed.
I loved riding
progression.
tailboard, but
Right?
that was me right there. Day boots, no Nomex hood.
Everything will kill
Everything,
you. So
yeah.
choose something fun.
That's right. Exactly. I did. I rode when I first went to Chandler. We rode tailboard. Had the day boots, and there was no such thing as Nomex hood. We knew when to go out because our ears started blistering. We're like, dang, it's hot in here. We got to get out.
Right.
We had SCBA's that were, demand. They weren't positive pressure at the time. So, things change. Yeah, things have to change. We have to embrace it and be change agents for the Department of Fire Service. Our missions evolved so much, with 83%, 84% of all of our call volume
Medical.
EMS. I mean, that's a big thing for us, of course. It keeps our mission and relevancy alive in our city, and it allows us to have the staffing we do.
Yep.
As a transport agency, it's huge.
Yep.
So yeah, that we've had to make some changes, and that's all come about. I mean, right after Kendall was killed, they did get an upgrade on the air packs at the time with the integrated pass, and so there was some equipment type changes done, but procedurally there wasn't a whole lot different. And so that's where we realize we realize we need to look at this. We need to learn from it. It's kind of like that scene out of Ladder 49 where John Travolta's playing the officer that comes in. The guys are all at the kitchen table about ready to get in a fight, and he's like, "What the hell's going on here in my house? I just come from telling her mother her son's been killed. And this is going on in my house. We get
Right.
through this by this. Then I kind of use the same words. We're going to get through this by sticking together. We're going to learn from it, and that's how we're going to honor Kendall. And that's what we've said. We've got the motto in our training room.
Right.
Our motto is every day is a training day, and so that's huge. We keep his memory alive. I mean, we honor him every year, March 31st, with a tone and moment of silence. Of course, as we've transitioned, several of the department members are now that were there are gone, moved on, and they're either retired or moved on, like Chief Shawley now moved on other positions in the department and other departments in leadership roles, which is exciting as a chief to see. I mean,
And then they can carry the lessons learned from you guys and forward.
Absolutely,
to the next.
absolutely.
So even Weber County, like the Brett Tarver incident, of course, this has been heavy in the UFA training as well as the Kendall Bryant. This really helped change the dynamics. And I think as a young firefighter getting into the business, we have this heroic mantra in our heart, right? That we want to go do this, and this is how we can do it. But I don't think we all understand until we start getting the reality that, it's going to be fun to go ahead and try to fight the fire and save lives and do whatever we're doing. Yeah. But at the end of the day, the most important life that we're going to save or protect is our own, right? And we can't, what do they say, a dead hero's a useless hero. It's just a whatever, right? Yeah. They're worse. They're hard to. They're just another problem, right? So I think we look at it, and when reality starts to set in, and I think it takes a few of those incidents, unfortunately, to help us stay safe, to make sure that we stay in check. That's like, hey, look, the reasons we train and the reasons we have the hard conversations is to protect us in the future so we can do more than just one fire, right? And I think you guys have taken on a unique role in understanding and ownership of the problem.
Absolutely.
And then being able to share that to prevent other people from having to try to digest and sleep at night with that. Right?
And Phoenix did that with what the project was called the Recovery. Chief Sullivan and I both participated in the different training evolutions at some acquired structures. We did a lot of RIT drills. We went out and did a lot of drills on air management and really talked about the round trip ticket in terms of, air management. Because, he used to say, hey, when are you going to call media? My last dying breath. Wrong answer, And so we really went out and got that message out. But we were exposed to that. I mean, we toured the Southwest Supermarket. We toured the site, some hallowed ground, very sobering. Seeing that made it real, and every department in the Valley was involved in these different operations throughout the Valley to get everybody on the same page, which is one thing we did down in the Phoenix area with our automatic aid system was so robust. I went on as many structure fires in Phoenix and Tempe than I did in Chandler.
Right.
I was captain on a West Side engine company that bordered Phoenix and Tempe, and we went on every work and fire in the south end of Tempe or the southeast corner of Phoenix. And so, we all work together. That's why we had.
You guys
some
have a good mutual aid
consistency.
agreement now. We do pretty good with it.
We do, and I think both Weber and Davis County have been very good at it, just like the Salt Lake County has as well. It's got to get better. I mean, I'm a big advocate of AVL sending the closest resource to help Mrs. Smith. The legendary Mrs. Smith doesn't care what your shirt says, doesn't care what the color of your fire engine is, unless maybe it's yellow. No, sorry, Dave. No, they don't care. They don't care. They just want somebody there that's prompt, that gets there quickly, is efficiently, and is kind, nice, and takes care of their problem. Mm-hmm. They don't care what it says. They just want somebody there fast. And so using automatic vehicle locators and consolidated dispatch, we're still working on in Davis County. But sending the closest appropriate resource is what really matters to the customer. And so, we are in Layton, we do a lot of, in Davis County, it's kind of interesting. And when I first got there, we didn't do that. And I'm not saying it's all me. I just kind of champion the cause that, hey, we're all in this together. And so now, when we get we get a structure fire call in Layton, my truck company's Hill Air Force Base. I mean, I love it. They are my truck company, and those guys love it.
Sure,
they show up with five. Yeah, they show up with 5 or 6 guys,
well trained.
They're well trained. That's because those guys do train. As Brunacini says, they look like 5 guys that came out of Central Casting.
Right.
And a battalion chief with an aide shows up, and so we got another command resource that we can put in a forward position or as a support officer, depending on when they arrive. And so we use them all the time. And we just had them on the last structure fire we had them on. They were there, and so they're always coming. If we've got North Davis coming in, we got Syracuse coming in, Kaysville. We're going into Kaysville a lot. We're going to Syracuse on all their structure fires. So we all work much better together, even though we don't really have a true consolidated. We've got some fixes right now that we're doing with the dispatch centers. But the good thing is we're all on the same page. I was a member of and down in Arizona, we had what we called the ROC, the Regional Operational Consistency Committee, ROCC. And I, as a battalion chief, when I was kind of over deployment and all that down in Chandler, I was part of the ROC, and that's where everybody in the valley had representation from all the different departments, and we would go through, consistency standards on volume 2 with the field operation guide, and okay, what are we going to call that? That 2.5 that we pull out of the back with the gated Y with 1 3/4. Well, we call it an A-lay. Well, we call it an apartment lay. We call it a lead bed. We call it a horizontal standpipe. Well, guess what? We're going to call it one thing. And so after a little bit of back and forth, horizontal standpipe. I don't care what you call it in the past. It's now a horizontal standpipe. And that's actually what we use in Davis County. I never really much to do with that, but we have developed a Davis County field operations guide. In fact, this next month we're doing it. We try and review it every year, get all the chiefs or deputy chiefs from the department, and we go page by page of the field operation guide. It's something we can pull out for especially low frequency, high risk events that we talk about. And so we go through that and make sure that nothing's changed on there. And so everybody's on agreement that fog guide is what we are going to use. It's kind of our version of the ROC, so to speak, so that we're all working together on it.
So how do you get you're gonna love this one.
Yeah.
Super A personalities like chiefs. Yeah. To all wear the same shirt. I mean, I get it that they're white, but you've got a white shirt here and a white shirt here, and they all have these giant
I like to just blend in. I
see that. And
I'm a fireman. That's
and
what
we
I wear.
appreciate it. I saw, I can't remember her name, the new DC for Ogden City. I love her. She's
Shelby.
Willis, I saw her at Lowe's yesterday, and she had a blue button up, and I'm like, you know what? I love that.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know. I mean, I love what she's been doing for Ogden. I personally haven't been
She's done
involved
tremendous.
with her.
She's done tremendous things there. Absolutely.
Just
She's
from the outside.
Yeah.
And I see you got Matthews and you have I love Cameron West to death. Like Cameron West is a wonderful man. And I love Jared Shawley. I love giving him a hard time. Right? I love Paul Sullivan and now Golden over at Roy. They're great, right? It's just when you try to get them all in the same room and on the same page, just like what you're saying, mutual aid agreements and AVLs, right? The automatic vehicle locator that's the closest unit to the call. Well, here it's funny. We tried that and it lasted about 20 minutes, I think, in Ogden and Weber County, where we literally drive by a call lane. We're going back and forth to McKay-D all day, and then you'll have a cardiac arrest. You're coming down, and in the address is at this house next to you. You got family looking for 911, and they're like, hey, and we're like, oh, we're not your truck.
Yeah.
Of course we're going to stop, but then all of a sudden you have territorial A personality, firefighter, paramedics. Like, what are you doing here? It's like, I couldn't really drive by waving, saying, good luck with that, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I know the call. So I find it ironic that people are still staking claim, kind of like the old gold rush days, on what's going on. I think it's kind of funny, and I think it's a little bit sad that I think at the end of the day, it does pan out. In a 365-day period, you're going to get some over here, we're going to get some over there, and at the end of the day, our call volume is going to remain pretty much stable. Of course, Ogden has a ton of calls.
Right.
But I think the only loser here is the citizen. So you're cheerleading the AVL and
we're trying.
Closest unit.
Yeah,
is
we're
important.
trying. Yeah, we're trying, and I know there's everybody wants in their ambulance for the call or whatever, and I get, and I understand it. It's a hard pill to swallow because, like I said, the citizen doesn't care. Yeah. There's revenue behind it, but at the same time, we just need to remember, why are we here?
Right.
Hey, chiefs, and why are we all here?
We
we all have a little bit of different mission statements, but they all revolve around the fact that we are going to provide like ours, 100% customer satisfaction. None of us is as smart as all of us, we have to, a rising tide raises all ships kind of a thing. We all wanted to get better. Well, getting better means we all work together. We realize and stay focused on why we're here, to take care of the citizens, figure out what the problem is, and solve it.
That's a hard struggle for us, for all of us, I think, is when you have a really smart person, which we require in everything we do, whether it be fire, paramedics, EMS, whatever it is that we do, business here. We want to hire the best of what they do. Like Ken, he's great at his job. But one of the things I tell Ken is like, I'm great. I love the fact you're the greatest and you're great at what you do. But it's more important to me that you're able to teach down and be able to spread, and then also hire someone that's better at you at something. So that way we can raise all ships, right?
Absolutely.
Right? It is important that you recognize, I want a tattoo on my forehead that says, I don't know. Yeah, right? Because, ultimately, I know something of something, but I don't have the answer to even finish that question all the way through correctly, whatever question it may be. Yeah. And I think sometimes we can really hurt ourselves, our employees, our partners, when it comes down to saying, hey, I know, I'm the guy. I have the answers. Well, there's some great input from you, and there's some great input from him, and he may have some input on fire that he's never even been in fire. But sometimes it's worth just listening, and it gets hard as we spend more and more time in seasoning, like yourself, to be able to, that we get into these careers longer and deeper, and like, oh, that guy doesn't know, he's just starting yesterday.
Well, and that's you've got to be a lifelong learner. I kind of joke about just getting started. I tell guys, I've only been doing this for 44 years, man. I got a lot to learn, and they're all like chuckling. I'm like, no. I'm serious. Yeah. I'm a voracious reader of leadership and history, and a lot of fire history. And man, my vehicle is my university on wheels. I was listening to Sean Anker's Big Potential on the way over here. Just got through with the book Audible on Paradise, and it gets me listen to a lot of books. I saw a thing by Blinkist that said the average CEO reads like 60 books a year. I'm like, wow,
I'm way behind.
How do you read that many? I'm lucky if I get a book a month. And I'm listening right now. I buy my captains a book every month at our officers meeting. I give them a new book. We did the one before that was Leadership Strategy and Tactics by Jocko.
Have you done Disrupt You?
No,
that is important. That one, that was a dynamic change for all our office. Disrupt You basically says take what you do every day and flip it on its back. Just be willing to do something different and try to disrupt your everyday same thinking for constant growth, constant friction in your life. I've listened to it a few times now.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like Think Again by Adam Grant.
I'm sure it sounds
like the same kind of principles. And so that I've got them Extreme Ownership, I've got them Fortitude by Dan Crenshaw.
I love that book too.
So I buy them for all of our staff, and I usually have an extra one or so I give the city manager. But it's important. That leaders are readers and readers are leaders. Not all readers are leaders, but I can tell you every leader is a reader.
Sure.
Because for somebody to succeed in their career especially at perform at a higher level, the ability to write well and the ability to speak well are key. Right. And you speak well, I think, in some ways by listening to a lot of these things, and audibles help you kind of listen to somebody read and present. But at the same time, when you're reading, that helps you understand kind of the written communication when you're going through and highlight and reading it. So that's a big part of it. So we really have taken it, like going back to our hiring right now. We are going through some big change. We got our Station 4 under construction.
Congratulations.
We're in the process.
That's been
thanks.
2010 rough goal, right? Wasn't it? It's been 10 years or so.
When I first applied here, they had Station 4 coming soon.
So that's 17
seriously.
years.
When actually it was planned on a piece of property we still own behind Target.
Oh, wow.
Well, we rechanged some of the priorities based on response times and GIS analysis on where we were covered and where we weren't. So we opted to make that Station 5 eventually, build Station 4 over east of 89 on a great spot that covers a big hole where we had the extended response times. We're actually going to relocate Station 3 just less than about a mile away southwest to hit that GIS study. You know, we want to have a 4-minute travel time to every spot in the city. And when we have those 5 stations, every station will be
Within
a
4
4-minute travel time. Eventually, when we get there, that's all part of our strategic analysis and placement of stations and everything. So we're in the process of, we just hired 12 folks. We're planning on, we're hiring more because we've had some retirements too. But, then we're going to hire, July, we'll hire another 6 is our plan, pending, budget approval. So we're going through some big transitions. I mean, I look on the department here in the 17 and a half years, man, there is a huge chunk of our department that's got less than 5 years on this, less than 5
Isn't that
years
crazy?
working on the department.
Back when you started, there was probably 70% with more than 5 years.
Oh,
And now
yeah.
you have 70%
We had
with
a
less
lot.
than 5 years.
Yeah, we had a lot. We had part-timers at that time. We've gone away from part-time a couple of years ago to, full career. I've got a couple of part-time positions. I still have a part-time pub ed specialist, and I got a part-time training captain, which is nice. I've kept one of our part-timers that had been a part-time captain and kept Captain Hall on, and she's full-time Salt Lake City, and she helps run our academy and a lot of our training, and it's an essential part of our organization. So I told the boss I got to keep her on.
Sorry, she's a keeper.
Yeah, so we got to keep part-time, but we're making that transition, and this is the first time we actually dropped our hiring requirements to only be basic EMT, because we're going to do our own. Well, we're going to give them a year to get their advanced. We'll help them any way we can to help them do it, give them the time off if they're on duty, so we give them a year to get it. But we're also providing our own fire academy, our own in-house training academy to get people their Fire 1 and 2 certifications, because we realize, we are committed. I read a book called The Talent War. One of my guys told me about it. I hadn't heard about it. One of my firefighters told me, hey, you need to read The Talent War. And I read it, and I'm like, yeah, we're doing the wrong kind of hiring. We got to hire for character. We got to hire for character and drive and desire. We can train them. We can train the skills. Let's hire for character. So we went through a different kind of a training process, or a different hiring process, and different way that we hired this year. And we talk about
How was your applications?
We actually had 186 applicants.
Whoa, that's a big increase.
About 150 something actually were at least qualified, which means they're at least an EMT. So we had about 20-something people that didn't even have their EMT. I just had, because
it's one filter.
Whatever. They turned it in. So then what we did was we had 150, and of those applicants, we went to a new program that actually we were kind of trying to figure out. We were like, man, we got 150 applicants. What are we going to do? And I was talking with Chief Mon, who does my Town Chief Mon does our kind of over our hiring and deployment. He's my admin BC and health and safety BC and training BC. Poor guy wears like 9 hats, and I work him to death, and he's amazing. So we said, what are we going to do? And I got a phone call, and I go, oh, my buddy, Wes Trainer. He used to be a battalion chief down in Phoenix. And he says, hey, I'm working with my son. His son's a captain in Gilbert. And he said, we've been working on a process. He says, I saw you guys are hiring. He saw it on Facebook or whatever, And I go, yeah, we're trying to figure out what to do. He goes, well, I think I can help you. My son and I have come up with this company kind of during the pandemic when departments tried to figure out how they were going to hire people. I think you might be interested. So we got together, did a little conference call, did a little demo thing on it. And so it's got Public Safety Answers is the company. And basically what you do is we send people an online link, and they take a test online. It's a couple hundred questions that were developed by an industrial psychologist that sees whether or not this person is based on their answers, where they fall in terms of whether they're a fit for the fire service. And it bands them. I mean, it gives them percentage, but it also bands them. So you got the red, yellows, and the greens. Red, they're probably not. This probably ain't cut out for them. Yellow, yeah, they could be. You might want to look at them a little more. Or they're green. And so we thought, well, there's one filter. So we kind of filtered them through. Well, after they take that test, they know they're going to be recorded. So now we gave them a couple of questions to answer. After they take that test, they go to the next part, and they do a video. And the question appears, and we give them a couple minutes, like 3 minutes or so, to answer the question. It's like what's your definition of moral courage, and how have you demonstrated that in the past, and was like one of the ones we used. We just came up with some questions. And so we let them, they record themselves. They get a couple attempts at it in case, the dog's barking or the
Is that a video or a sound recording?
No, this is video. They know they're going to be recorded.
On the screen.
On the screen. So and in fact, back on that other test, people say, well, can't they cheat? Well, it's one of those ones you really can't cheat on. And actually, it flags them if they leave the screen, like to go over to Google or something.
Right.
It flags it. And so if they leave the website, they get flagged for that. So, and we didn't have anybody do that. They're pretty simple questions. It's just whether or not they're a fit for the.
And they're repetitive,
service.
right? They just ask kind of the same questions
in different ways.
in different methodologies.
So there's no really way to game it or whatever. So then they give the first question. They get a couple times, and they can't go back if they do on the third try, which we didn't know whether to give them 2 or 3 tries. And this is something again. We were one of Wes's first customers. He just developed this in the pandemic time. And so we let them record, but they can't go back and say, "Oh man, I like the first one I did better." Because once you re-record, it's done. So you're at the risk of when people say, "Well," but they've heard the question. Now they have a second time to answer it. So that's okay. I mean, if they want to change their words a little bit, feel free. So they did that. So they answer a couple of questions and they submit it. So we get the big list of where they are in terms of their banding, and then we sat down. Our hiring committee, we had our recruitment committee got together, and they watched all the videos, kind of made their marks, and it was almost like Wes kind of says, it's kind of like a swipe left, swipe right.
The Tinder of the fire service.
The Tinder of the fire service. Nope, swipe left, swipe or whatever way direction
right.
it is. Swipe, swipe, swipe. Oh, this is awesome. So we made notes of it. So we had about 100 out of the 150 or whatever. I think we had about 120 or so take the test, 120, 125, something like that. I don't remember the exact number. But after they did that, we reviewed them, and we invited the top 70 to come up for our version of the test, which I want to give it all away. But we have some kind of interpersonal skills testing that we do and some team building things, team building situations we put them in, medical scenario, where we have our crews all down there, playing ping pong and cornhole. Say, hey, here. Let's play. Hey, so what do you do? What do you do? Hey, where do you live? Hey, what do you like to do on your day? What do you like to do for hobbies? Just to get to know people and see if they're a fit. We're looking for, the best fit. And so we kind of came up, we realized we had some tremendous applicants by the time we got through that. We feel like we've hired the best of the best. I mean,
Good.
we were real happy with the process and everything. So
in those questions, the next question is, if they want to get in the fire service, what would you say the best way to get ready? I mean, obviously that's a big, huge question, but if you had a 60-second answer to like, hey, look, I want to get in the fire service, what would the steps be to be able to apply for Layton properly or to have the best chance, right? So if you had some bullet points you'd want to cover looking for the best applicants, what are you looking for and what do they need?
Well, I will tell you, here's funny you mention that. Here's kind of my big 5. This is what I tell our recruits, and I didn't necessarily come up with this list myself. I actually heard it on a podcast one time. I'm like, I like that. It was really good from the 55 Fire guys. He said, we're looking for people that are committed to physical fitness. We want you to be physically fit and mentally fit for the job. We want to be prepared. We need to be prepared at our best. We swore the oath that we'd be at our best on their worst day. And like the Fit to Fire podcast is, it's not because we want to, it's because we work to. Would you want you rescuing you? So commitment to fitness. Number 1, positive mental attitude. We want people to come into work with a great attitude. I'm hiring guys for attitude, and attitude is everything. I mean, that's kind of that's a huge deal to me. In fact, I got a really nice text message from one of my biggest mentors in my career, Bill Evans. We were captains together. He became a battalion chief rather quick, and I worked for him for years. I was his battalion captain, kind of his fit for a couple of years, and loved it so much I did it again for a couple more years. And he was amazing, and he sent me a real nice text message. He does a class on customer service in the fire service, and he says, he's been doing this presentation for, 35, 37 years. He says, and you're the one I talk about, about a guy that comes to work with the right kind of an attitude and the right kind of drive. And it's kind of a nice text message, and
it's hard to do.
It's a big deal.
Sometimes you have stresses.
It's a daily decisions. We want people with a good, positive mental attitude that, that come to work looking for the best. And, they're going to be, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for people with a strong work ethic. That's huge. We are looking for people that aren't afraid to jump in and get things done, that just aren't, sitting around. If it needs to be done, do it. I mean, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for people that have the heart of a servant. And really, we it's all about service before self. And so that's what we're looking for. And then we're looking for a lifelong learner. Because, like, you know, it's kind of mentioned, I've only been doing this 44 years. I got a lot to learn.
Well, and it changes.
And it's got to be, and it changes a lot. EMS changes. We've been a medic for a long time. I mean, I'm 77, you know. I mean,
That's a long. I was barely born, so I'm not trying to rub any salt in
I know
anyone.
that.
I was 74.
I mean,
just kidding.
IC sticks, and, you know, I mean, we did some really cool stuff back then. I mean, we saved a bunch of lives, but, you know, we've evolved. The fire service evolved. You know, slicers versus reseal BS and flow path and all these things that we talk about.
And it changes like back.
Yeah.
So we'll get away like, so this is what we're doing. I'm like, wait a second. I thought we went away from it last time. Right. Well, we did, and it didn't work. So we're going back.
So let's live learn. So I tell people that's what we're committed to, and we empower our people. That's I've got a big thing. I give my guys an empowerment statement. Again, plagiarism is rampant in the fire service. It's something I took from Phoenix and Brindisini. You know, I tell our guys, this is your firefighter empowerment. In fact, here's the card so you don't forget. You know, is it the right thing to do? Is it legal, moral, and ethical? You know, is it something within your scope and your ability to do? Are you willing to be held accountable for it? Then just do it. You don't have to ask permission. Just do it. And so I preach that to my guys to empower them to do whatever it takes. You know, we used to, when I first got there, we couldn't get, if somebody ran out of gas and showed up at the fire station, we couldn't even give them a gallon of gas. We hey, the station's about a mile and a half down the road. You know, good luck. You know, I mean, now people show up, hey, I'm out of gas. Okay, come on around back. Let me give you a little gas.
And top you off. I want to bring up your the whole thing on what you just talked about with like plagiarism is this, and then you know how you were saying this is if it's honorable, if this just do it, right? So you and I, we had an incident in officers class, and it was one of these things that they said I'd copied a test thing, right? I'm like, well, I didn't have the books, and I think you recall that I didn't, and I'd come up and I'm like, I'm completely confused, and Dave was frustrated, and we've since talked about this, and it's all gone to bed. But what I really appreciate what you did is there was a lot of heated temper. I'm pretty A personality, and so is he, and we all are, and I don't mean that, that's kind of a cliche saying, but I want to defend myself. Right. And I'm like, hey, wait, I did not copy this. So whatever you guys are thinking. But anyway, I never really had the chance to. It was really nice to have just a level head. Like there was heated exchanges. I was being probably unprofessional and defensive. And I know that Dave was a little bit, right, without having a chance. Of course he was offended. And of course he was bothered that he felt like a firefighter that was progressing into officer was taking or plagiarizing or cheating in any way. I would be frustrated too. Right. Yeah. But it was really nice to have a level head. Sitting next, you were on my right, and you're like, Dave, hold on a second, right? So I've never had a chance to tell you thanks. So, but I 100% agree, and I think when you go into this service, especially when you're giving these really odd, unique scenarios where you're walking into people's homes where they may have passed away, or they're really sick and you're hauling the only resident or the family members out of their home. There's valuables, there's medications, there's all sorts of things that if you had the wrong person in that role could really capitalize and take advantage of those scenarios. Right. So as a chief and as a hiring recruitment officer or a trainer, you really do have to filter what is the wrong apple in this group and who's going to take advantage to these risks. Like if my department partner, if you were my rescue partner, we go in and all of a sudden something's missing, I'm just as guilty as you are. You know, tell me who your friends are, I tell you who you are, and it's the fishnet theory, unfortunately, in the fire world. Right. Like obviously no one wants to own it, it's all you. Right. So you have a unique duty to make sure that we're filtering out any of the people that are going to take advantage of these type of scenarios, which unfortunately you're never going to stop them all. Yeah. So I just wanted to tell you thanks for having a level head in heated scenarios. That for me it meant a lot, but for two, it is a difficult spot to hire because there is people, and it could have very well been me that day that was trying to plagiarize and take advantage of some scenarios.
Yeah, and that's one thing I talk about in my company officer classes. You know, people always, it's sort of similar related to that is, you know, people say, well, it's detriment of integrity. Well, it's doing the right thing when nobody's looking. Well, that's true. It's also doing the right thing when everybody's looking, because you got to be willing to stand up and right the wrong and stop it and do that. And it kind of, you know, I always talk about the honor code of the Air Force Academy, and all the academies will not lie, steal, nor cheat, nor tolerate those amongst us that do. Right. You know, I talked about a good friend of mine whose son and daughter both went to the Air Force Academy and got them both in. And their daughter, I mean, we knew her since they've been lifelong friends. I knew when she was a baby, and you know, and she just was always a little different growing up. She's just wicked smart, and I remember when she was like 9 going, man, she's going to be like a rocket scientist and stuff. Yeah, she became a rocket scientist. She went to Air Force Academy. She was vice chair of the physics department at the Air Force Academy, and when she went back to go back there. But that year they had a cheating scandal and lost several cadets. I can't remember what the number was, like 7 or 8 cadets, something like that. And I always tell people, guess how many cheated? Like 2. 6 got expelled because they knew. They take it serious. They take it serious. So you're right. We got to hire the right folks. I mean, that's why we're, it's character is what we're hiring for. And so, I think us opening up to, just an EMT and hiring the right people and providing the training, that's key. We have I got some rock stars coming in, and
I'm excited.
We've hired such amazing people lately.
And it's been difficult the last several years.
Yeah,
it's been difficult.
Yeah, and I mean, people were like, "Man, you had that many applicants." Yeah, because you know what, it's a great city to work for. Yeah. I'll brag on my boss a little bit. I work for the city manager, and you talk about a man of honor and integrity. That's Alex Jensen. I mean, he is the leader for the city, and I absolutely love the guy. He is such a terrific leader, and he's just super smart along the way, but he has such great vision for the department, whether it be, Utopia back when it was getting a bad rap, and now everybody in the world wants on Utopia, especially with the pandemic. Like, man, those guys were geniuses. But, he had such great vision for that. And even in the lean times, the 2008, 2009, cities were furloughing people and laying people off, even here in Utah. Guess what? We didn't lay anybody off, and guess what? We all got a raise. It wasn't very big.
You were it, but you got one.
Everybody got a raise. We have got a raise every year since I've been here for 17 years.
That was the chatter, by the way, that we're up here, and we were kind of like, well, Layton's doing raises because we had a 7-year, no raise.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So everybody pointed south, and I'll not say the chief, but then they said, hey, look, well, they're paying this much up north, and they're paying this much that south, and they go, well, that's about 7 miles that way, and that's about 19 miles that way. That was your answer.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So that was disheartening too, because it felt like it was just a pass off, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, well, this isn't quite right. We're sitting here, we're going 7 years without merit, COLA, nothing, and then here's Layton City swinging. They're not maybe not huge, but it is something that recognizes at least appreciation, and they're like, well, it's about 7 miles to the south on I-15 if you want to go try that. Right.
Well, and I think too, the other thing about our hiring, I will say this is, we cast a wide net. I mean, we sent stuff out on every social media site we could. I have a good friend of mine that's runs the Verdugo Fire Academy, Sam DiGiovanna down in Southern California. I know Sam real well. And I said, hey, would you send this out to your folks? And he said, sure. And then he sent me an email and he CC'd me, and I'm like, who are all these names? And he said, oh, it's every coordinator of every fire academy in the state of California. So
so you shared it with all those guys.
Yeah, in Arizona and so we had several people from California on our list. We hired one offered him a job. He was up on the Monument Fire.
Awesome.
Offered him a job, took it on the spot, said, I'm going to call my wife and tell her to start packing. We got to get up here by October 1st. So we've hired some out from out of state. We actually hired somebody out of South Carolina that came out and tested.
That's far.
And yeah.
All the way to the other side.
And he's going to be in our March class, in class 22-1. But that's good because he got a new baby and needed a little bit of time. So he says March is perfect. So
great.
I guess I say it because we had people literally applying from everywhere, like probably 5 or 6 different states. Because Utah's got a good reputation. It's a great place to live. Housing prices are out of control, but people love it. I mean, a lot of people in California, we're looking at it and applying, and we still have a lot on our list that are from California.
And we have top 3 of the top 10 economic growth cities in the nation.
Yeah,
right?
we're like one of the best. And so, we did cast a pretty wide net, but again, we're looking for the right fit and the right folks, So
well, I think if you make that choice, Layton City, you're making a good choice. You have a chief that I believe will absolutely have your back. And I'm not trying to fluff you at all because I think you know me better. I'm not that guy. But regardless, I try to stand for what's right. Sometimes I make mistakes and I do wrong things and I don't want to. But at the same time, right, we all do.
I make mistakes every day. I'm like, man, I just sure handle that wrong.
I'm doing it right now.
That one, yeah.
Right, like I told you on my way in, I'm doing some stuff right now that I wish I wouldn't have said, right?
Sure.
And we'll redact it. But at the same time, hopefully there's forgiveness there. But ultimately, if you make that choice and you're making the good choice for Layton, but also I wanted to tell you thanks for all the trainings that I've received over the last several years, and I appreciate you covering some of the stuff with Bryant that we've learned, and how you can really take something that's traumatic as losing a firefighter on a fire ground and create a skill set. I mean, this really has influenced not just probably thousands, but tens of thousands of firefighters. And even though it may seem like a class that you're listening to and that you're like, oh, another training, right? There is stuff that takes you home, that you take home with, and you're sitting on a fire ground and you think, wait a second, if I go down, what's it going to take to get me out, right?
Yeah.
And you're trying to be conscientious of, hey, where's my SCBA? What's my tank at? I don't want to get to zero. I got to be at 50% on my way out. We forget, like, hey, halfway in's halfway a bottle, and halfway out,
right.
and you got to have more than that on your exit. So
Exactly.
you really have to manage this, right? And it's classes and lessons like that bring the reality of what we're really choosing. It's not just all hero, that we really do have to go home to our kids. We really have to go home to our wives, and we have to be there for our partners. So dumb decisions from our own and the people that we're working with can really hurt everyone.
Well, and that's what Bruno always used to say, and I remember him saying, is that bad decisions made at the strategic level are paid for by the folks at the task level. It's something we've always
that's a heavy burden.
We've always got to be thinking about. And again, back how we honor Kendall.
Yeah.
I didn't know Kendall personally, but I know him for the guys on the department. I know him through my assistant chief. I know him through the people that work with him, and that's how I've gotten to know him. And we honor him. And the best way we can honor Kendall is to learn.
Yep,
and learn from it.
Protect other people.
That's what I say. We wear the bands. We all that stuff we talk about that is a constant reminder. I see that rock every day I get out of my truck and walk past it, and I'm just committed to everyone goes home, man. That's
one monument for your career. Leave it there, and that was not on your watch, but it's there to remind you not to get one, right?
Yep.
So I want to tell you thank you so much for everything you do, and thank you for just your service in 44 years. We're excited to have you there, and we appreciate all you do, and thank you for the lessons and everything. So
I appreciate it. It's been an honor and pleasure here talking with Jeremy. There's not a better career in the fire service, and that's the other thing I tell folks. I love it. I love my guys and gals. I wouldn't want to be doing anything different. I'm committed. I'm committed to, giving back. The fire service has given me a great life. It's given me a great career, and I just want to keep giving back.
Well, we appreciate all the sacrifices that you've done, and we hope that the other young firefighters can learn, and Layton's a great start. Congrats to the new 12 people and potentially 18.
Yeah, look forward to it.
And hopefully they get to be the next rock stars.
Well, then we're picking them. I'm sure they will be.
Thank you so much, Chief. I appreciate it.
It's been an honor and pleasure being here. Thank you for the opportunity.
You have a great one. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to 90 Proof Wisdom Podcast. Hopefully there was a takeaway for you. If you like what we're doing or even our efforts, tell your friends about it. Let us know what we could do better. Again, thank you for listening to 90 Proof Wisdom Podcast. Don't forget to smash that subscribe button.